My husband secretly spent our $50,000 house down payment on crypto and NFTs while I was taking care of my dying mother. Now he claims it was for our future, so I divorced him. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but I need to get it off my chest. I used to roll my eyes at stories about spouses hiding financial secrets. I mean, how could you not notice something was wrong, right? Well, now I know exactly how it happens. You trust someone completely, think you know them inside and out, then one day you wake up and realize you've been living with a stranger. My world completely fell apart 3 weeks ago when I discovered my husband Jake had blown our entire house down payment on crypto and NFTs while I was away taking care of my terminally ill mother. Jake and I have been married for 4 years, together for 7. We met through mutual friends at a local pub trivia night. He was charming, ambitious, and seemed to have his life together, had a good job in software development, owned his car outright, and was already investing for retirement. I was impressed by his financial responsibility since most guys our age were still living paycheck to paycheck. The first few years were amazing. We shared the same values, especially about money. Jake was the one who suggested we open a joint savings account just 6 months into dating. He'd give me these adorable quarterly financial health presentations, complete with pie charts and projections. I still remember him saying a couple that budgets together, stays together while showing me his meticulously organized spreadsheets. God, what happened to that man? We both agreed that owning a home was a top priority. We lived well below our means, brown-bagged lunches, limited eating out, and put every spare dollar toward our house fund. It wasn't always easy watching our friends take fancy vacations while we stayed home, but we knew it would be worth it. By last year, we had managed to save $50,000 for a down payment. Then my mom got diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer in January. I'll never forget that phone call. I was at work, just finished a meeting, when Mom called. Her voice was shaking as she told me the results of her biopsy. I immediately left the office, barely able to see through my tears as I drove home. Jake met me at the door. He'd left work early when I texted him the news. He held me all night as I cried, promising we'd get through this together. He even offered to dip into our house fund for Mom's treatment if needed. I refused, since Mom had good insurance, but I was so touched by the offer. Looking back now, I wonder if he was already planning what he'd really do with that money. The doctors gave her 6 months at most. I'm an only child and my dad passed away years ago, so there was no question. I had to go help care for her. She lives about 4 hours away, so Jake and I agreed I'd stay with her while he held down the fort at home. He was completely supportive, telling me to take as much time as I needed with her. I spent nearly 3 months at my mom's, coming home only for a weekend here and there. Those months were a blur of doctor's appointments, medication schedules, and precious moments with Mom. She tried to stay strong, always asking about Jake and our house hunting plans. "I want to see you settled before I go," she'd say, squeezing my hand. I promised her we were saving diligently, that her dream of seeing me in my own home would come true. Jake seemed to be doing fine on his own. We video chatted daily and he'd tell me about work, what he was making for dinner, normal stuff. Looking back, there were signs I missed. He started having his camera issues during our calls, saying his webcam was broken. Now I realize he probably didn't want me to see the trading screens behind him. He'd get oddly excited some days, talking fast about some new opportunity he'd found, then be distant and moody the next day, cutting our calls short saying he had meetings. But I didn't think much of it at the time. I was consumed with Mom's care, managing her pain meds, helping her write letters to family members, sitting with her through endless chemo sessions. We'd talk about the past, look at old photos, and sometimes just sit in comfortable silence, holding hands. She worried she was keeping me from my life, but I told her she was my life right then. Everything else could wait. Those quiet moments with Mom are precious to me now. She'd tell me stories about her own marriage, about trust and partnership. "Marriage isn't just about love," she'd say, "it's about building a life together, brick by brick." I thought I had that with Jake. I thought we were building something real. Mom passed away in early April. I was devastated but also relieved that she wasn't suffering anymore. Jake came for the funeral and was wonderful, held my hand through the service, helped with arrangements, charmed all my relatives. When we got home, I took a couple weeks to grieve and settle the estate before starting to think about house hunting again. That's when everything imploded. It was a quiet Sunday morning, and I was finally feeling ready to think about the future again. Mom's funeral expenses were settled, her house was on the market, and I thought maybe looking at some dream homes would help lift my spirits. Jake was still asleep as I made my coffee and opened my laptop, excited to start house hunting. I logged into our joint savings account, already imagining the kind of place we could afford with our $50,000 down payment. The page loaded, and for a moment, I thought there must be some mistake. I refreshed the page 3 times, my hands shaking more with each click. The balance stayed the same, $827.14. My coffee went cold on the desk as I sat there, frantically scrolling through months of transaction history. My stomach churned as I saw the pattern, Transfer after transfer to various crypto exchanges and NFT marketplaces, each one a knife in my heart. I literally felt my heart stop. I checked the transaction history and found dozens of large transfers to various crypto exchanges and NFT marketplaces over the past 3 months, while I was with my mom. I confronted Jake immediately. Instead of apologizing, he got defensive and excited, pulling up all these graphs and charts on his computer. He had invested our money in something called ApeCoin and various NFT projects with names like Bored Yacht Club and Mutant Collective. According to him, these were guaranteed moonshots that would 10x our investment minimum. I just stood there in shock as he rambled about Web3 and blockchain technology and how this was the future of finance. When I finally found my voice, I asked how he could make such huge financial decisions without even discussing it with me first. His response? I knew you wouldn't understand the opportunity, so I had to act fast before we missed out. Besides, it's basically still savings, just in a different form. I lost it. Started screaming about how he had stolen our future, betrayed my trust while I was caring for my dying mother. He tried to hug me, saying I was too emotional and needed to look at this logically.